And we're continuing our conversation with Stewart Cameron. Stewart, you were living a destructive life. Then things change. You come into a relationship with Jesus. How did that happen?
I can't really say for sure what happened because today in my life it's still happening, like where I see my own selfishness and in my life and how God's grace always comes through. But it was just mainly I think through other people and how much their unrelenting love, and I don't know why, but they just continued to be there when I thought that they didn't need to be there.
So you're playing basketball though one day at the YMCA, and you're being a typical guy and maybe using some rather colorful language, and
Yeah.
and this fella comes over and says, "Hey man, cool it with the language."
Yeah, his name is Frederick, and he's the executive director of Liberty for Youth. And what I didn't know is that he has a charity game that he has every year against the police, and he knew I had a history with the police, and he wanted to change or help me change my mentality towards them because I had that arrogant attitude. And when he asked me to play for that game, it really meant a lot to me because to me it meant that he believed in me. And even though I didn't show up regularly to Liberty for Youth after, he followed me a lot, and so we randomly ran into each other, and he found out where I lived, and it was just he was there for me.
So for you though, and I think for a lot of us, it's kind of a progression. You know, some people have that moment, they know that when they came to Jesus, it's, you know, such and such a time and all the rest of it. For you though, it's been more of a progression. So things changed dramatically. You were trying to follow Jesus, but then you had some other challenges and you slid back.
Yeah. I was never, and even today, I'm probably not as honest as I like to be. And I would hold my feelings in and not tell anybody what I was thinking. And the dangerous part for an alcoholic is to not tell anybody, because I start believing those false ideas to be reality. So then I would drink and everything would be okay, but then it led me to do other drugs. And then I found myself going down this even worse hole because of the drugs. And I was 120 pounds, I couldn't stand. And then finally, that point, I don't know how or why, but it's like the stars aligned, and I was in enough pain to actually listen to some advice that a friend was giving me while I was in detox.
And I know one of the things about your story too, and I think this is where we have to really communicate God's grace, because if guys at Liberty for Youth had given up on you, like, hey man, you blew it, you're gone, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And so you really understand God's grace. And I know, again, it's a progression. But them, the fact that they didn't give up on you, I mean, that just speaks volumes to their love for you.
Yeah, it means a lot. And there's been a lot of people in my life who I've been there for me in that way, you know, and I would feel like I feel like I have a team of people standing around me, even as I'm here right now. And I would feel like I do them an injustice. You know, my girlfriend, Deanna, she's my rock, and Liberty for Youth, Frederick and Cliff and Fernando, and that Christian family, Christian, Jose, Betty, Melissa, and their kids, and Justin, my nephew, he's a miracle. Him being in my life, it's just I don't know how I'm here.
Well, you're here by the grace of God.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know, and I think I just sense that there's people out there that are watching, and maybe they at one time followed Jesus, and they've slidden back. Okay, I've blown it. What would you say to them?
I would say to them, talk to somebody about that, and be in a point where you finally run out of options. And until then, go do what you want to do, and then until you run out of options, and then talk to somebody so you can actually listen. Because God never gives up, His love never fails, and He's always going to be there, just not in the way we think He is.
Not the truth. Liberty for Youth, what does that mean to you? And why should people in Canada care about this ministry?
Because it's one of the few ministries that I've been able to be a part of that actually cares sincerely and is willing to do whatever it takes to help youth like me off the streets.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. And I know that the story is not completely finished being written. We're all, in progress. And thank you again for your honesty and vulnerability in sharing your story. And I know that there are people that are watching now that maybe you've got a son or a daughter that's maybe even on the streets or wayward or prodigal son or daughter. But please know that God loves you and cares about you. Prayer partner standing by all the time, 1-866-273-4444. We'll be right back.